coast of South Carolina is tackling a lot of issues, from erosion to sea level rise. Today, I talk one-on-one with Dr. Elizabeth Fly with the Nature Conservancy about conservation and resilience for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Dr. Elizabeth Fly, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you, Quintin. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, I appreciate it greatly. Needless to say, you are the Director of Resilience and Ocean Conservation at the Nature Conservancy, of course. You are an enthusiastic scientist turned outreach professional with a passion for encouraging strong collaborations and partnerships among public and private entities to increase a region's capacity for conservation and resilience. So tell me, what's new, what's now with the Nature Conservancy, that is?
Well, the Nature Conservancy is a global nonprofit, environmental nonprofit. We're in over 80 countries throughout the world, but we do have a really strong presence here in South Carolina with about 30 staff. You may know the Nature Conservancy for land protection. That's kind of our bread and butter. We've been doing that for over 50 years now in the state and have protected over, I think it's 417,000 acres throughout the state. But we recognize that, conserving the lands and waters upon which all people depend, which is our mission, takes more than just land protection. And so what my program has really been doing is growing in the resilience field. So that's dealing with all the issues we're dealing with: climate change, with sea level rise, with growing development along our coasts and inlands, and how can we utilize nature in a way to really help communities and people.
What is the state of conservation and resilience here in South Carolina?
It's really strong, I will tell you that. And I say it almost on repeat that I am so proud to work in this state because we do have a really strong conservation ethic. We have really strong partners, and we all really, of course we have things to work on in South Carolina, but we do have a really strong group of people working on conservation and resilience.
So, what are those key issues right now that are needed for conservation and resilience in South Carolina?
Sure. Well, along the coast, anyone in Charleston knows the flooding, and that's kind of the number one issue that comes up a lot. And there's, a number of reasons for the flooding that's happening on our roads and our businesses and our homes. Sea level rise. Charleston has seen 13 inches of sea level rise since 1900, and that's accelerating. We're expecting another 14 inches just by 2050. So, that's leading to a lot of the sunny day flooding we see where our roads are flooded even when it's not raining. Of course, big storms bring storm surge, and that's the waves coming inland. And then just development practices and like aging infrastructure, stormwater pipes that are crumbling. All of this kind of blends together to have a number of issues in resilience and in flooding that we're dealing with. And so what we are proposing, and it's not a new idea, is nature is resilient. Nature has solutions. How do we, when it's appropriate, utilize nature? So for example, if we've got eroding shorelines, because eroding marsh shorelines because of sea level rise, because of development, because of storm surge, instead of putting up seawalls, which often cut off flow of water, can cause more erosion in the future, use a living shoreline, use oyster reefs, use marsh plantings to maintain that natural land-water connection, but still stabilize the shoreline.
So I'm sitting I'm sitting a couple of miles away from the battery here on the peninsula of Charleston. So when it comes to that ideal of a seawall, what should be that alternative?
Well, I will say, Quintin, somewhere like the battery, you've had a seawall there for a very long time, and you have really important infrastructure behind it. And so, the city is going to choose to protect some areas with hard infrastructure, and that's acceptable and that's okay, right? But what we can do with these hard infrastructures is still incorporate some green solutions around them. So for example, you could install what they call breakwaters or more, oyster reef habitat in some of the area of the harbor, living shorelines in the water beside the seawall, the battery. So it kind of dampens the waves, and really what it does is help increase the longevity, the lifespan of that hard infrastructure by having the green infrastructure paired with it.
So what hard infrastructure would be ideal right now?
Well, depends where you are. If you're somewhere like the battery, right, it's going to be a large seawall. The city is installing these very large drainage pumps, pipes, tunnels to deal with a lot of the flooding. Again, these are like the massive flooding issues that the city is investing in, and that's needed. So it's this question of, where do we want to invest, where do we want to armor and protect, but then where are those places where we can incorporate more nature into these solutions? And there are plenty of places like that.
And what other places could be ideal for these solutions?
Gosh, I mean, what we like to say is every drop of water counts. So we can come up with solutions for someone's porch, someone's backyard, up to community level, up to watershed level. So for example, if you own a home, you can install a rain barrel, and that catches water off your roof. It stores it, and then you can use that to water your garden, or just help slowly slow down. It's really, how do we catch the water where it falls, slow it down, instead of everything just pouring immediately onto our roads and into our storm systems. So rain barrels, pervious pavers instead of concrete in your driveway, scaling up to community solutions. You can do rain gardens and bioswales instead of undersized ditches and undersized culverts and pipes. And then, you get up to the larger watershed, like land protection solutions as well. And then on your coast, you've got your living shorelines and marsh restoration. So it's a whole suite of solutions, but that's the point, right? Every drop of water counts, and every solution counts, and every person can help with this.
Yes. So you talk about person that can help with this. So who can help with these efforts right now?
So if you're listening and you're a homeowner, plant some native plants. Go out and buy a rain barrel. But larger action does need to take place at the government level. So the local governments incentivizing, finding policies, incentivizing green infrastructure and nature-based solutions. The city of Charleston is working on that and some of their zone and code rewrites. And so that's where we can find the carrot and the stick, right? We need to find those developers that really want to work with us on these innovative solutions, and learn that actually there's a pretty solid return on investment in utilizing these types of nature-based solutions. And so it behooves developers to start to embrace these as well.
So what would be the return on investment for green infrastructure?
Well, a lot of green infrastructure, again, it helps with your stormwater management. So developers that have to, figure out solutions for stormwater management on site, that can help with that. Then on top of that, you've got the water quality benefits that these, systems help out with. You've got the just aesthetic value. People want to live where it's beautiful and where it's green, and where there are native plants and pollinators buzzing around. I mean, that helps with the appeal, and then the bottom line and the price tag of some of these developments.
Oh man, I want to get to that in just a second. But you talked about something very ideal, which is always a hot topic that is during the political season, and that is zoning and rezoning. So, what can be rezoned and zoned right now in these areas with development?
So in areas, let me think. In areas with development, that's really coming in and retrofitting. So that's owners that already, own buildings or developments coming in, and again, realizing that if we put in, let's stick with the stormwater solutions. If we put in some of these green stormwater solutions, again, it's going to help with the age of the infrastructure, the hard infrastructure that you do have there. Instead of your pipes, failing after a couple of years, you're able to, again, include these beautiful amenities, and increase the longevity of the infrastructure that you do have. And then in, newer developments, and we're seeing, up the Charleston Peninsula, up the Neck, all these new developments, incentivizing developers to add whatever type of green infrastructure, add permeable pavement, and in return, they can get kind of credits for maybe going one level higher in their building or something like that. And I'm not an expert on it, so don't hold me to that exactly.
Right.
But that's the type of thing, and other places that are offered. Like if you add in these benefits, then you can have the permitting process expedited or something like that.
From a resilience standpoint, is it ideal for vertical growth to happen in Charleston?
Yes, so ideally, the best kind of resilient urban planning is where you've got density, you're building up, and then you're allowing green spaces as well, in other places. So you're not just covering an entire area in concrete impervious
Mhm.
surface. Yeah, so resilient urban design is really centered around walkable streets and dense urban development.
And you talk about people who are appealing, well, having an appeal for living in Charleston and other areas along the coast of South Carolina. I know this is a maybe a political question, but how do you keep up with that growth with smart growth, green growth?
It's a great question, Quintin, and it's something we're working on every day because, yeah, people want to live here,
Yeah.
but one of the reasons people want to live here is because it's so beautiful and we have the marsh and we have these natural amenities. And so, if too many people come here and we don't develop in a smart way, we're not going to have those amenities that people are moving here for. So, I think there's needs to be the recognition at the elected official level that these natural resources are part of why people come here and that we need to be protecting them. And then we need to hear from the people
Mm.
moving here and the locals that have been here forever, that these are things that we need to be protecting. South Carolina has the most salt marsh of any state in the East Coast.
Huh.
It's a critical resource for us for so many reasons, and it's so worthy of protection.
What else needs to be protected here in South Carolina from your vantage point?
Gosh, Quintin, everything. I mean, we're in Charleston. The salt marsh is certainly one of them, but you just move a little bit inland and you've got critical kind of hard bottom forests that are so important for carbon sequestration and biodiversity. You move up into the Blue Ridge Mountains, which is a really incredibly biodiverse area. If you haven't been up there are species that live there that don't live anywhere else in the world. So, that area is worthy of protecting as well. So, the beauty of South Carolina is from the mountains to the sea. We have an incredibly diverse, range of natural resources that should be protected.
And with all of this growth that's coming to South Carolina as a whole, where do you see conservation and resilience in the next 5 years?
I see it really a strong path forward for us. Governor McMaster has recognized conservation as critically important and is working towards protecting more and more land in our state. We have the South Carolina Office of Resilience, which was developed a few years ago, and they are working on everything from land protection down to community and watershed based resilience. We've got the Nature Conservancy and other partners, really working with these state agencies. So I'm kind of happy where we are. I mean, there's always work to be done, but I'm hopeful for us moving forward.
And how can you move forward with this growth that's coming?
How can you move forward with the what that's coming? I didn't catch your word.
With the growth that's coming here to
With
South
the growth
Carolina?
that's coming, yeah. Um, we maintain our strong relationships and we grow them and we continue to kind of prove that these concepts work. People like to see things work in their own backyards. And so the Nature Conservancy, what we try to do is pilot new projects, new things, get it in the ground, show that it works, and then hopefully others will pick up on that. So we, among other partners, have been doing like residential living shorelines for 15 to 20 years now, but now we're scaling up. We just put in an acre-sized living shoreline up in Georgetown, South
Wow.
Carolina. We've helped design created wetlands where homes were bought out, got those in the ground. So again, that's what we're trying to do is to show that these things work. Again, show that we don't have to give up development. We don't have to give up our economy to have conservation and nature as well.
And what new programs so far is working that can be replicated elsewhere here in South Carolina?
Sure. So share a couple things. So we were really happy to receive a $6.8 million grant from NOAA through their Transformational Habitat Program. This has three components to the grant. The first is we're building a 2,000-foot living shoreline down at Marine Corps Air Station Beaufort. So this is a nice partnership with Department of Defense. We're bringing volunteers out there and chipping away on this very long living shoreline. But every time we go out there, we see it working already with sediment accreting and marsh growing back in. So that's great. And again, that partnership with DoD is really kind of important and transformative. The second component is what we're calling the Living Shorelines Community Assistance Program. So right now, living shorelines are so let me say, in 2022, our state permitting agency came out with a definition of a living shoreline permit, essentially. So now there is a living shoreline permit. Homeowners can apply for that and put a living shoreline on their property. But it's still fairly costly. It's a process to go through. And so this community assistance program is a application-based program where under-resourced homeowners and communities can apply, and we will work them through the process and get a living shoreline on their property. So that is one program that we're in our first stage pilot scale, but we really hope that that can be scaled up and maintained, across the state, because that's going to be a huge need.
Oh, absolutely. What other needs do homeowners want right now as far as conservation and resilience?
I think a lot of homeowners really are unaware of the the value of the natural resources in our state, and again what they can do. I'm a homeowner myself, and I worry about the flooding, and I worry about if my roof is leaking, and all those things. So anyone who is on the coast and experiencing, if you happen to have waterfront property and you're experiencing erosion, right, a living shoreline could be a great option for you. But if you're just seeing, flooding on your property from these rain bombs that we get, again, this is where these rain gardens can come into play, or just, taking out your concrete and putting in gravel or permeable pavers or the rain barrels, and even plant some native plants. They're much easier to maintain, and they soak up a lot of the water, so they will help with flooding and ponding in your yard as well.
So if anybody needs help from you all right now, how do they go about that?
Well, I'm always happy to chat with people if they want to reach out. There are a lot of great resources. Actually, Clemson Extension is a great resource for native plants, for rain gardens. They have a Master Rain Gardener certification program. They do the Master Naturalist course, and they just have a ton of information on their websites about native plants. So that's all great. If you're super interested in what we call nature-based solutions, and these are, the living shorelines and the Creta wetlands that we're doing, we've started an initiative called the Nature-Based Exchange. And this has, since 2022, brought together practitioners, people kind of in this field, to all kind of come together about what nature-based solutions really mean in our state and how we can move them forward, through the permitting issues, through the design issues, through all the issues, that stand in our way to get this type of work implemented. But we just held our first annual Nature-Based Exchange Symposium 2 days ago. We had over 24 speakers. We had over 100 attendees. I mean, there is interest and enthusiasm for this type of work in the state. So we're just really excited to keep that momentum going.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Well, Dr. Elizabeth Fly with the Nature Conservancy, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you so much, Quintin. This has been great. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome.